Wimer. I'm an architect. Well, my origin story is my father was an engineer and my mom was an artist. So, as I was going through school, I had these kind of two impulses in my background that were kind of driving me in different directions. And one was very qualitative and then one was very quantitative. And actually architecture allowed me to merge the both of them. So these two sensibilities that I think that you have to have to be an authentic architect were coming from my parents. I think one of the things that I learned fairly early on as I was studying architecture is that I grew up only about a mile away from where Robert Smithson grew up in New Jersey, and there are interesting aspects of the way he understood the landscape, and he understood how you construct something that relates to the landscape. And very early on, that was something that was a strong impulse. Trying to figure out how to expose a site rather than impose on the site. But then how do you take that as an analogy to do something that's very big and complex? Right? Because Smithson was working with the landscape, he was working with smaller components, but his aspiration was always to kind of get to a bigger scale so that his earthworks were something that created an environment. But I think that's been an impulse all the way along. Is how do you get a building that responds to a climate and a location and allows you to understand that place better than before you built it. And he had a great line. It was something like that. The goal is to expose the site rather than impose on the site. So that was very important for me as I was studying and as I was beginning to work. I can't think of. I'm trying to think of. I don't know what the first instance was because you ease into it. So being at a big firm, you begin by being responsible for aspects of projects rather than the whole thing. But one of the early projects is Changi Airport Terminal 3. It's a project that one of the first ones that I really authored myself. And what was interesting about that story, and this was a situation where the Minister of Transportation in Singapore had been presented many projects by a local firm and was dissatisfied with them. So they actually asked us, since we were the authors of this rail station that connects to the airport, they asked us to help them out. So we created 3 different alternatives for them, and of these 3 alternatives, one was very simple. It was a flat roof, but the roof was conceived as just a cloud of louvers that allowed the light to pass through into the terminal, and that there was a varying density of louvers based on the location within the terminal, so you could meter the amount of light. And it was interesting presenting this to the Minister of Transportation because what we said was we were presenting 3 different schemes. They all had different levels of difficulty, and this one we told them was the riskiest of all of the solutions. It had 2,000 skylights, and they had 1 skylight that leaked in the whole airport complex. But what persuaded them in part was the fact that it was the riskiest of the alternatives because they wanted something that was ambitious. And so it was sort of calibrating your idea to what the client's expectations were. In that case, well, typically, I mean, it's been part of the process to do rather than one alternative that you think fits the site. I mean, when you're in school, you're taught you just do one thing, right? And you make the project, you try to make it work as well as you can. I mean, really, the process that I've been working with is to create multiple alternatives as a way of working your way through a conversation with a client, and you try to position those alternatives so that the one you want to do is in the middle. And sometimes you get surprised, and the client wants the more ambitious one. But if you can create a range of possibilities and has a very ambitious scheme and one that's less ambitious and one that's in between, you can quite often guide the client towards the one in the middle. But if that's the one that you usually put the one in the middle as the one you want to build, so you create something that's really wildly ambitious that makes them have a comfort level with something that's a little bit more conservative in the middle. So I think that there's a strategy for doing that allows you to engage in dialogue with the client about what their needs are and what their aspirations are. But it's still very creative. But you need to create multiple alternatives, which is a challenge when you're starting out because you're just trying to figure out what you want to do and how you.